Today is the 9th of June 2024. Welcome again to another short video courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. As the world embarks on its grand adventure into artificial intelligence, AI, the demand for copper is going to increase. Copper wiring is going to be needed to build the larger data centers that will be required to drive larger servers to capture larger amounts of data to run artificial intelligence algorithms. Copper will also be needed to build transformers, and these will be needed to enhance the electrical grid to make sure we can provide enough electricity to these larger data centers to run the larger servers. And really, this is what's been behind the focus and the attention on stocks like NVIDIA. They are making these larger, faster, smarter computer chips to drive the servers in the data centers, which will drive this whole artificial intelligence movement. So the question that I often get then, does copper move in cycles? Well, this video is going to explore that. And before I get into it, just let me point out one thing. When it comes to commodity futures, most people are pursuing, wheat, corn, soybeans, currencies on the Forex market. There are copper futures that do trade in New York, and I dare say that the average investor on the street probably has never dabbled in copper futures. It's just something that's not in the news. It's not something that we pay a lot of attention to until now. So, does copper move in cycles? Let's find out. Let's take a look. So I'm going to start this look at copper and its potential cycles by going right back to basics. Let's consider a price chart. Price chart could be of a stock or it could be of a commodity. A price chart is nothing more than a time series of data. So each data point in the plot that makes up the chart, each data point then reflects the price at that day, and then each successive data point represents a different day in sequence. So on a daily price chart, you will be able to identify the point for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then in the following week there will be 5 more data points and so on. And so how do you determine then from a chart whether or not there are cycles involved? Well, to do that, we have to go back to 1898 and the work of a mathematician by the name of Sir Arthur Schuster. So Arthur Schuster was looking at apparently sunspots, and he would have had some kind of a filtered telescope, and every day Arthur Schuster was looking at the sun, and through the filter of the telescope lens, he was able to determine whether or not he could see any sunspots. And by the sound of it, I haven't read his paper that he published in 1898, but it sounds like he was looking then at this plot of sunspot occurrences, and he was trying to figure out, is there a cycle, a periodicity to his observations? So what he did is he applied a mathematical technique called the Fourier transform. So what is a Fourier transform? I'm going to use an example here of a musical occurrence. I'm going to use the example of a musical chord. So in music, a chord is created by striking 2 or more notes at the same time. So let's take the example of the chord of C major. If you sit down at a piano keyboard and if you hit the notes C, E, and G at the same time, the sound that you are generating is very harmonious, very pleasing to the ear. The sound generated by hitting C, E, and G at the same time is called the chord of C major. Now, let's suppose that you enjoyed listening to the chord of C major, but you didn't really know what it was made up of. Imagine if you could take that sound and you could then use a mathematical function that would analyze that sound and break it down into its individual parts, C, E, and G. That is a Fourier transform. And so Schuster ultimately called his technique the periodogram. And today there are mathematicians who will refer to this overall technique as the spectral density function. So really what you're doing is you're taking a price chart and you're running the data through Fourier transform mathematics, and you're trying to determine what the dominant repetitive cycles are in that data. So I use a software called Optima, and I'm able to bring up end of day price charts, and Optima has got a plethora of different functions that I can use. I can apply astrology. I can do any number of things on these charts. One of the built-in functions that comes with the Optima software is the periodogram function, Arthur Schuster's function. So what I do is I bring up an end-of-day price chart. I can do it as a daily chart, a weekly chart, a monthly chart. I can then ask the Optima software to apply the periodogram to the data that makes up that time series in that chart. And the periodogram will generate some peaks and valleys in the lower pane of the chart, as you can see here. And I can then use that and play around with it and figure out what the dominant cycles are on a time series, such as copper futures. And so if I take a weekly chart of copper futures and tell the periodogram function to analyze that data, it's going to come back and it's going to tell me that on copper futures on a weekly chart, there is a dominant cycle of 191 price bars. Now look at this above chart here. Go all the way back to the left-hand side of the chart, 2016. That's when one of these 191 bar cycles came to an end and a new one started. And you can see that from 2016, the price then increased and the cycle hit its midpoint, its crest, and then it started to decline. So if you're sitting there watching this thing, wondering, when is the price of copper going to bottom out? Well, all you have to know is that there's a 191 bar cycle. And where did that take you? Right into early 2020. And then we embarked on another cycle. Price went up, and at the midpoint, the crest of that cycle, you had a high point on copper prices. And then from there, it went down. It recovered very briefly, and then it declined again. And that cycle ended in late 2023. So we've started off the new cycle by going up. We have lately been coming down, and who knows what's going to happen from here. We could reverse and go dramatically higher, but the important thing to notice is you have to watch this 191 bar cycle. We're only a fraction into this thing. We haven't even hit the crest yet, which is going to happen in 2025, 2026 sometime. So we've got all kinds of room to run on copper as per the 191 bar cycle. So there's going to be a lot of trading opportunities that come and go here in the next year or two as AI heavily influences copper demand and copper prices. Now, if I play around further with the periodogram function, I can figure out that within this longer 191 bar cycle, on a daily chart, there is a 120 bar cycle, and also on the daily chart, there is a harmonically related 60 bar cycle. And so on this chart above here, if you take a careful look at it, in February of 2024, look at what happened. The 120 day and the 60-day cycle both bottomed, and that really spawned then this big run up in copper prices. And you'll notice that at the midpoint crest of the 60-day cycle, yes, price did recede a little bit, and then it went again. Notice that at the end of the 60-bar cycle, the price of copper sort of consolidated in a bit of a sideways choppy pattern. And then as the new 60-bar cycle got underway, the price of copper surged again. And notice then that it reached a peak here in May, which is pretty close to the midpoint crest of the 120-day, 120-bar cycle, if you will. And then, these cycles are going to bottom again in around the end of July, early August. And so get ready then for another trading opportunity here in the next 7-8 weeks on a lot of your favorite copper mining stocks, or if you want to try your hand at copper futures, or if you want to try your hand at selling uncovered naked puts on copper as the trend bottoms and turns bullish again, go for it. But now you know what the cycles are on copper futures. Now, in terms of individual mining stocks that have a focus on copper, you got to be careful because there's a lot of stocks that maybe involve gold mining with copper as a byproduct. They can be a little bit confusing because now you've got, copper cycles and gold cycles sort of overlapping, and it gets a little bit messy. So what I look for in terms of copper then are actual, what I call pure play copper mining stocks. And what I've noticed is, for example, Southern Copper trades in New York under the ticker symbol SCCO. In terms of reserves, proven and reserves of copper ore in the ground, Southern Copper, with its projects in Mexico and South America, is the #1 copper miner in the world. And mid to late July is going to see the 60-day or the 60-bar cycle bottom out. And, the price chart is looking a little bit weak right now, as one would expect. And then come mid to late July, look for an opportunity to get back into Southern Copper, and then ride the wave and ride that next 60-bar cycle. If you want something that is more focused on the United States, take a look at Freeport-McMoRan. Trades in New York under the ticker symbol FCX. In terms of reserves in the ground, Freeport-McMoRan is the #2 copper miner in the world, and its projects in the U.S. are located in places like New Mexico and Arizona. And so, come mid to late July, look for, again, the 60-bar cycle to bottom. You're going to have a crest of the 120-bar cycle. I'm looking for an opportunity to do something on Freeport-McMoRan come mid to late July. Now, as an aside, in my last video, which I think was about May 22nd, I posed the question, how did W.D. Gann back in the 1920s, how did he analyze cycles? He would not have had a computer. He would not have had access, or if he did, I can't imagine he would have been doing a lot of Fourier transformation mathematics using a pencil and a paper. He had different ways of measuring cycles. And as I said in that May 22nd video, he looked at the geocentric orbital period of Venus and Mars. So Venus geocentrically goes around the zodiac in 584 days. Geocentrically, Mars goes around the zodiac in 780 days. Gann would have taken those periods and broke them down into fractions. And the fractions would have typically been 1/8 fractions. And so, as an interesting quick exercise, what I did is I took a look at Venus and its 584-day geocentric orbital, and I broke it into fractions of 1/8. And so if I take a look at the first 1/8 fraction of that overall geocentric period, guess what? It lands at the end of July. So, you can do Fourier transform mathematics. You can keep it as simple as using Gann's technique of 1/8 fractions. And I think you're going to see that there's going to be a very close overlap. And that leads me once again to this notion of as above, so below. What happens up there in our cosmos with the planets, I believe, impacts human emotion. It triggers us to be either fearful or greedy. When we're greedy, we buy, we push prices up. When we're fearful, we sell, we drive prices down. And whether you measure that in terms of 1/8 fractions of a planet's orbit, or whether you use periodogram Fourier transform mathematics, you're really looking at the same thing just from two different points of view. And the conclusion is, you know what? Stocks, commodities, ETFs, all of these things move in cycles. And if we're aware of the cycles, we can take advantage of it in terms of trading and investing. So again, mid to late July, watch some of these copper stocks and watch for potential buying opportunities. But I have to caution you here, be sure that you always are aware of the trend. And for that, you're going to use something like the slow stochastic or the true strength index, or maybe you've got a trend following indicator on your software that you like to use. Use some kind of a trend following indicator. You're looking then for the change of trend, and that change of trend is going to occur in conjunction with something related to this 60 bar cycle. And when you see that trend changing in accordance with something astrological, that's your opportunity to take a long position, or maybe you want to sell some naked uncovered puts and capture the premium. Do whatever you wish, but always, always be aware of the trend. All right, that's it for me. You know where to find me, investingsuccess.ca, astrology letters, cycles report. You can find me on Substack. You can look at some of my courses on Udemy. You can read the book, Follow the Trend. Financial Astrology Almanac is out there. I'm soon getting ready to start doing the rough draft for the 2025 issue of it. Anyway, thank you kindly for watching today. And as I say, copper does have a cyclical component to it. Take advantage of it. Make some money getting in and out of these copper mining stocks in accordance with these cycles. Thanks again, and have yourselves a wonderful day.